flying, motor gliding, moving on the ridge real low, looking like a streak of lightning. If you gotta go, motor gliding. Listen to me and I'll tell you no lie. Too fast to turn, too low to climb. I got a cool machine and everybody say, whew, takes your breath away, motor gliding.
Well, hello everybody, and welcome back to the third clip in this series of clips about a 427k flight in North Wales, well, north to mid Wales, done in a northwesterly wind, I think it's 295 degrees, strength of 21 knots. There's no wave opportunities, and although there are cumulus clouds, the lift under them is generally quite weak, although as we're about to find out, we might have managed to circle in a half-decent thermal in a minute. Just as a reminder, I flew this task on my own with no water ballast, but this is a replay, so I'm sitting here as a passenger commentating on the flight I did, and I'm flying with a ghost. The point being that I flew this task originally in the summer of 2021, I think it was, or the spring 2021. It was originally an online task organised by the people at Denbigh Gliding. I can't remember who the task author was, but Chris Gill, the CFI and manager there, kind of hosted the evening when 23 people flew the task online and only 4 of them got round. So it's a difficult task. Because I've started to make these video clips for YouTube, I thought it would be great to have this flight on it, but I hadn't saved a replay of this flight, so I really had to refly it. And then I thought, well, I can use my ghost from the last flight to follow around, which ought to guarantee that I will get round it. Ha ha! But we found out it's not quite that simple in the last clip, as you saw if you watched it. But anyway, so what I'm doing essentially is flying the task with my ghost from 2021, and I reflew the task in it was the end of October 2022. And in this clip, we have rounded the first turning point. We're on our way to the second turning point, which you can, in the distance, you see the mountain range that's in line with those 2 cumulus clouds. And to the right of that, you can just make out the sea in a bit of an estuary. Well, the turning point is kind of more or less over there. It's on the coast. And we've got to make our way there. So, okay, I think that's about it in terms of the preamble. So if I can just raise my visor a bit to see the pause button, let's get this clip started. Right, here we go. Well, I wonder if you're seeing these replay controls on the VR screen. Ignore them if you are. They're just what allow you to actually capture bits of the flight for replays. They might not show on your screen, but they're in my VR headset. So here we are, and there's the ghost, yeah, lurking underneath our nose. This raises an interesting point, because in real life, that'd be all a bit tricky. You've got to be very careful that you know where your flying buddy is at all times. I mean, if they're hidden beneath your nose, you can't see them, they can't see you. They could decide to pull up, and they might pull up right into you. So, but here, in virtual reality, I can lean right out over the glider. Do all kinds of amazing things like that, follow, you know, all that stuff. Do that in real glider anyway. So, what I think is happening here is that the ghost, that's me from whenever, wants to have a go at thermaling under what looks like a reasonable cumulus cloud. So I'm trying to follow him. But the first strange thing is you look up and there ain't no cumulus cloud there. So what's going on? But there's a cumulus cloud there. And I think, as I've said on previous clips of doing replays in Condor, that I don't think it always renders the clouds in quite the right place. So I think we were probably underneath that cloud. It's back over the wing, circling under that. But it shows us now as circling in the middle of nowhere. But this whole business of thermaling in this situation raises a point I'd like to discuss, which is we know from the way the task was set up, when you look at it, that the thermals were set as weak. And yet we're managing 4 knots here. So perhaps, I think to myself, well, perhaps they weren't that weak if you get underneath a reasonable looking cumulus. But in fact, we're also over rising ground that is, reasonably into wind. And I know that Condor will be quite generous in giving you a bit of lift when it thinks you're on an interwind slope, even if it's a rather gentle one. This is much more than contoured landscape to look down at. But anyway, so I wonder whether we're fooling ourselves into thinking this is a good thermal, when actually it's a mixture of not especially good thermal, but being supplemented by, as it were, slope lift that Condor is feeding in. Anyway, we're circling under it. I think we started this at 2,800, but now at 3,300, so, it's kind of worthwhile. The other thing is I keep reminding people when I fly these tasks is I'm not trying to be the fastest, hottest pilot on the planet. I'm trying to get round, because when you've gone a long way on a task, it's very frustrating to land out. Very satisfying to get round a task at all, let alone being the fastest. And for the rest, I'm trying to enjoy myself and explore things and experiment and learn. And so this discussion we're just having, or the point I'm just making about a mixture of weak thermal and slope lift, well, I'm trying to learn from this all the time, so perhaps next time I won't get suckered in quite the same way. Because really, the hotshot pilots will be saying, why are you hanging around here? You've got all that prospect with contours in the land, interwind slopes and things that are, in the direction of turning point 2. Crack on, get some speed on. And in fact, when I look at the profile for the guy who won this task at a pretty good speed, 131 kph, he was carrying water ballast, full water ballast. So I think the idea there was to be able to store a lot of energy in the glider and move along fast, and not do us hanging around, So, yeah, okay, I might go down that road. But I also do like to have time to take it slowly, explore, etc., etc. So, right, what's the ghost doing? He's heading over this way now, which is sort of in the direction of the turning point. So you have a slight to the left of the nose. And then we have this kind of sort of ridge here, and the slope ahead of it is kind of reasonably into wind. It's a little bit sort of, the wind's to the right of it a bit at this point. But as you look over there, the contours change a bit, and there's a bit of a channel running up, and probably somewhere up along there, there might be some better lift, and I think that's what the Ghost is going to explore. And I'm often handicapped on this flight because I'm kind of following the Ghost without knowing quite what he was thinking at the time, and perhaps assuming at times he's not thinking about it as well as I am, but I don't know. There are occasions, as you'll see in this clip in a minute, where he ends up a bit higher than me, and I think, well, I think he knew what he was doing. So I puzzle a bit about why at times he heads further out from this, but I think he's spotted that channel there as something perhaps that he thinks might be funneling the wind up towards the steeper, snowy covered ramp, and is exploring the possibilities around there, whereas I am just kind of following him without quite understanding what's going on. And then at times I decide not to follow him because I think, I'm not buying into this, I'm going to do my own thing. And then of course, surprise, surprise, I don't necessarily do better, because he might have been thinking about it all rather more than I'd given him credit for. I tend to assume that flying it 18 months later and having done more mountain terrain type flights, that I'm probably, a bit more skilled at it now, but I don't know, not so sure about that. Anyway, here we are, getting pretty close to him. And again, I can look out to see him down there. You couldn't do that in a real glider, so you wouldn't want to be in this position, really. Not a good idea. Yep, sure enough, as we get to here with that ramp and maybe the channel assisting it and things, things start to get better. He's drifting along, I'm drifting along with him. Keeping a close eye on him. I'm doing a lot of flying, incidentally, because I'm doing all this following the Ghost stuff. A lot of flying without referring to my airspeed and things, and therefore I'm trusting completely on how he's flying to make sure my flying is reasonably okay. And at times, of course, my own flying might go a little ragged in my efforts to sort of stay with him. And at other times, like here, I've also decided, well, I don't need to follow him slavishly. I'm just going to do my own thing. The lift's all reasonable around here. We're now up to 3,700 feet, so we're getting a useful height gain out of this. I mean, really, it would have been safe to go diving off towards turning point 2 back there now. But hey, I'm following the ghost, so let's stick with it. And in fairness, the ghost will have been very keen to, if he wanted to get round, to try and build up a lot of height. What will be this and that mountainous stuff towards turning point 2 will be the last chance to do this before we enter a very long leg where we won't be able to maintain height. We'll have to slowly glide it off as we progress towards Fishguard, which is turning point 3. So let's see what he does. Is he deciding to move along yet? Incidentally, I'm enjoying sipping a G&T while I do this clip, which makes me smile because, this is something, again, you absolutely couldn't do if you were in a real glider doing real flying. Alcohol and aviation do not mix. They're not, it's absolutely verboten, even when you're a passenger like me. Although I dare say the odd passenger has turned up from the pub to have a trial flight. I guess it's one. So what's the old ghost doing now? Because we seem to have decided to do our own thing and ignore him for a bit. Okay, so he's back there. Again, as always with real gliding, if you're flying on a ridge, you're looking at it all the time to see whether the other glider is and what they're up to, because you've really got to watch it when you're sharing a ridge with other gliders. Yeah, the left's quite good, smooth and extensive here, isn't it? We're over 4,000 feet now, so that's good. Here he comes, drifting in across my stern. Okay. Although he was a bit higher than me, we seem to be getting to a similar height to him. Oh, very similar, isn't it? I'm probably sitting here wondering why we don't just crack onto the turning point back. But I'm waiting for him to take the initiative on that. Meanwhile, we're at 4,400 feet pretty much, so that's good, and I'm turning around again this way. Okay. You notice the speed builds up a bit in the turn, and I tend to do that, especially if I'm not able to glance at the air sign and I'm doing other things. I know I'm flying very slowly anyway, and as I go around into the turn, I definitely don't want to sort of risk an incipient spin, so I'll relax my grip on the stick. Let the speed build up a little bit. It's not a serious issue as far as I'm concerned, and I'll sort that out once I've come out of the turn. And it might not be best practice, I wouldn't know, but I would say it's on the safe side of not best practice rather than the unsafe side of not best practice. Right, so the ghost has obviously decided to crack on towards the turning point, and so we're following. Still with good lift. So we're taking it slowly and just milking it for what it's worth before we come out of its influence. And that's the end of that clip. It looks as though the ghost was going similarly slowly and milking the air as well. Now, I now know, really, looking at how the top performer on this flight, who did it at, pretty good 131 kph and flew with full water ballast, that if you really want to get this task done smartly, and you think you're good enough to actually beat the odds on the risk of flying fast and heavy, then carrying full water ballast, getting some energy in the glider, and cracking on at pace is the way to get around the task fastest. But you've got to know what you're doing. If you end up in a situation where you've had to bleed off your energy just to stay aloft, you're then in a bit of a debit situation. So, and anyway, not knowing any better, I flew with no ballast because I wasn't rushing, and I'm going for the kind of the stay high option where I can. You don't get to stay high on this task whether you like it or not. But for the moment, we're going high and slower. So that's the end of this clip. Hope you enjoyed it. Like and subscribe and all that stuff the YouTubers say, and hit the notification bell if I've managed to work out how to put one on screen by the time this is published. And yeah, hope you enjoyed it. And if you did, look forward to seeing you in clip 4. Okay, and as usual, when I take off the VR headset, it'll look as though I'm bailing out the glider. Okay, bye for now.
Well, here I am again, the sky looks black. I got my best friend, she's riding in the back. We're doing